If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and we are back for day 10 of the 12 days of metal, where myself and other YouTubers that love heavy metal talk about a favorite album of ours from a particular subgenre of heavy metal music ever. And we're now in the final fourth of the series, and we're going to kick off day 10 with a genre that I debated if it would belong in doom metal. And you could make the argument this genre is, or this subgenre is a sub-subgenre of doom, but I think there's plenty of bands that do try their best to kind of not be as doomy with a gothic metal sound, but there are bands that still mix it in with doom metal, where you could create a hybrid called gothic doom. And the album I'm going to choose for gothic metal is a band that you would say is gothic doom metal, and that is, of course, the pioneers of gothic metal as a whole, Typo Negative, and I went with World Coming Down. I talked about this album at length in the Typo Negative ranking back on Halloween, so to kind of give you the cliff notes, basically around this point, Peter Steele's life was in total turmoil with cocaine and alcohol addictions, as well as family members getting sick, other family members passing away and dying. Just Peter going through so much during this period, and that's reflected on this album lyrically and thematically, and even sound-wise. Like, it's one of the heavier Typo Negative albums, like a heavier version of October Rust, but with a more gothic, depressing, bleak, like, sadness on top of it. I mean, when you have songs like Everyone I Love Is Dead, Everything Dies, Who Will Save the Sane, and the title track, World Coming Down, you know you're in for a depressing journey of an album, but with plenty of balls, heaviness, and great depressing atmosphere because of the keyboards of Josh Silver and Peter Steele's vocals. Oh my god, and like the riffs are so heavy on here, bringing in that Black Sabbath influence even more than they ever had before leading up to this album. And like I said, with the themes all about death, depression, drugs, alcohol, and just sad stuff all across the board, it's like, holy hell. I mean, you can feel this album, especially if you who are watching this has suffered from similar things that Peter Steele has suffered from, and that's so much loss and addictions to stuff that you didn't want to become addicted to. It's just, man, I can't even talk any further about it. If you want to know my full opinion about it, watch my Typo Negative album ranking, where I ranked this number 1. And that's my pick for gothic metal. What do my cohorts have in store for you guys?
Favorite gothic metal record that's easy, hands down, Paradise Lost, Draconian Times. An absolute classic, and I'm sure many within the fan base and within the metal community would definitely agree. Well written, gloomy, doomy, with that gothic tinge in there that Paradise Lost is known for. Nick Holmes is at the peak of his vocal ability. This is a transition album for them. Prior in the '90s, they were a lot more they were still very doomy, but they had a lot of death metal, growling vocals and such in there. But this is and we started seeing these changes, with each progressing album. But this is where they peaked, and it's a phenomenal record. Favorite tracks are the opening track, Ember's Fire, or Enchantment, excuse me. What else? Hollow Land is an amazing track. Shadow Kings, every track from top to bottom. It's a phenomenal record, and I listen to it regularly to this day. I bought it back in '95 when I walked into a music store, and they were playing it over the intercom, and I had no idea who it was, but it sounded awesome. So I asked the guy who was working that day, and he didn't know either. So he went to the back and he's like, "This is what it was," and I'm like, "I know these guys because I was familiar with Icon, which was the album they released prior to that." But yeah, Paradise Lost, Draconian Times, my favorite gothic metal album.
What's up, guys? Just Josh here for day 10 of the 12 Days of Metal. Today is Gothic Metal, and my pick for Gothic Metal is Typo Negative's 1993 album, Bloody Kisses, their third album. Now, Typo Negative's also considered doom metal, but as well as Gothic metal. But I think Gothic metal is their main genre, but they definitely have some strong doom elements as well. Very long songs, very slow songs, such as Black Number 1, the title track. But I was surprised to hear some faster, more like thrashier type songs on here as well, such as Kill All the White People and We Hate Everyone. Those kind of caught me off guard the first time I listened to this album, because I kind of expected it to be, through and through like Gothic Doom. But yeah, it was really cool to hear those thrashier songs. And then Christian Woman, of course, Summer Breeze is also a really good song. Great bassy, just low-toned singing from Peter Steele, rest in peace. Some great drumming, great guitar work on this album. And yeah, Gothic metal is another one of those genres I really need to delve more into, because I definitely like this album. And Typo Negative as a whole, I just need to delve more into them as well. But yeah, my pick for Gothic metal would be Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses.
Here we are, guys. We are today number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Day number 10. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's for all your wrestling fans out there. If you get the reference, I love you. But regardless, we're to day number 10, and we're going to be tackling a subgenre that I personally, it's one of my personal favorites, alongside maybe Art Turkestana from the Horseman Podcast, who knows a lot about this subgenre. And of course, we're going to be tackling the subgenre of Gothic metal. Now, Gothic metal was a subgenre that you can say kind of originated kind of in the late 80s with bands like Sisters of Mercy, alongside others that kind of got this Gothic influence and eventually created a lot of bands, like some of the early Death Doom bands, the Peaceful Three, like, My Dying Bride, Cat Antonia, Paradise Lost, even early Anathema, like I mentioned before about my history with Anathema. The early stuff is pretty good. The rest is kind of like meh. But regardless, alongside of the way, there's been some other bands that have released some really good Gothic metal albums. Of course, modern Gothic metal, bands like Evanescence, which is probably one of the biggest, Gothic metal bands in modern day. To underground bands like Theater of Tragedy, which, is another band I could have chosen for this discussion. Hell, I could have gone with Typo Negative, because Typo Negative is regarded as probably one of, if not the greatest, Gothic metal band of all time, with albums like, Bloody Kisses, alongside others. But to me, if you know me, you knew I was going to go with this album, being that they're one of my favorite bands of all time, a band that I kind of was a late bloomer. Once I found out they actually broke up, I actually got into the band and listened to their albums, and I found out that their albums are fucking amazing. And of course, I'm talking about the band Him, His Infernal Majesty. And of course, with the album that I went to, if you all know me, you kind of know what it is. Of course, I'm talking about Greatest Love Songs, Volume 666, released on November 3rd, 1997. So it's fun to think that I'm actually older than this album, because I was born in 96. So it's kind of weird to think about that. But regardless, this album at the time, when it was released, the concept of the idea, this was still kind of fresh when the whole Norwegian black metal scene, when the church burnings happened, because a lot of people thought that, Him, they thought, because of the name His Infernal Majesty, thought they were too girly to be in black metal bands, but they were too satanic for Christians, which that wasn't the case because of the lyrics. Of course, when you have a song like You're a Sweet 666, you think it's all about the devil and all that. Our Diabolical Rapture, another song that people might think it's about Satan and all that. Like I said, they were too good for the black metal community, but they were too bad for the Christian community. So they were kind of like in the middle of this kind of weird thing that they actually thought they weren't really good enough, the Repulsors and all that, which, to be honest, back in the mid-90s, 96, 97, during still the big boom of black metal, I can see why people would shit on him. And for years, I'm gonna be honest, for years, I was not really a him guy. I really wasn't until, like I mentioned before, after they broke up, I actually was like, you know what? Let me listen to one of their songs to see if I actually enjoy it. And of course, that song was "When Your Love and Death Embrace," which is probably my favorite song from them and from this album. I began to understand why a lot of people gravitated into him and what it is and all of that. Like I said, that song is one of the few hymn songs I actually know how to learn on guitar. It's so doomy, yet romantic, yet sad. It kind of goes in my wheelhouse, a kind of more ballad-esque song. So naturally, it was kind of in my wheelhouse. So for some reason, for years I never got into him while they were still around. But after they broke up, I got into them, and I actually enjoyed the crap out of them to the point that I actually began to get more into their albums and began to actually become more of a fan of them to the point that I actually have tickets right now to see Ville Valo next year in San Antonio to actually see them live, which I'm really excited for about that. But this whole album is amazing. From the Heartless to the cover of Wicked Games to the cover of Don't Fear the Reaper, which is a really out there cover that I actually enjoy the living crap out of it. I mean, everything about this album is amazing. I like the story that Ville Valo said that this whole thing's around the number 666, 666 tracks, 66 meg with 66 seconds, the album. And not to mention, the album cover is kind of a weird kind of, I don't want to say erotic, but just look at the album cover. It's kind of weird album cover to the point that Ville Valo is kind of watching you in some weird fashion to the point that I actually have it on vinyl, which I have it actually on my wall sitting right now on vinyl to the point that's how much I love this album. Like I said, it's one of those albums that I got to late after the band broke up. It's one of my favorite Gothic metal albums of all time. It is my favorite hymn album of all time. Everything about this album is pure perfection to the point that, like I said, I'm really excited to see Ville Valo live next year in San Antonio. So, thumbs up for that. But for this day, like I mentioned before, Hymns, Greater Love Songs, Volume 666.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the 12 Days of Metal. Hope you guys enjoyed the following albums that we've talked about on this episode, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas indeed. Horns high. See you guys in the new year.